Greetings YouTube, John, the old geek here. This video is not a review. No, it can't be, because I'm going to be looking at a module I've never run. For good reason. Yes, there will be spoilers, but don't worry about that, as nothing worthy will be spoiled. A group of 7 men approaches. They are following the road east, and are making good time, neither tarrying nor running. Their faces are expressionless. One is dressed as a cleric of some sort, and another is dressed as a travelling drummer. The others could be peasants or serfs going from one location to another for the harvest season. Each carries some sort of weapon. It is plain they are not soldiers by their haphazard way of walking. They do not seem to be joking loudly or singing as they advance. That paragraph is enough to strike fear into the heart of any D&D player of a certain age. I'll dispense with the formalities for this one. As I said, this isn't a review. Not at all. In case you were wondering, I would give this module 1 out of 10 because the cover is green, and I rather like green. And a couple of the interior pieces of art are okay, I guess. Sort of. N2, The Forest Oracle, was published by TSR in 1984. The N signified the Novice series, aimed at beginning players and DMs. The first module in the series was N1, Against the Cult of the Reptile God, which, while being an excellent adventure, was one of the most unsuitable to have a novice tag, as it required skilled DMing and an extremely alert and intelligent party in order to work. N2 was written by Carl Smith and featured cover art by Keith Parkinson, interior art by Jeff Easley, and maps by Diesel. With those 3 illustrious names, it's sure to be pretty, right? Wrong. It marks the nadir for all 3. The cover image is laughable, the interior art mostly feels rushed, and the maps, well, they're at least readable. However, they are utterly uninspiring, and the location numbers don't even correspond to the module text. But it was not the maps and the artwork that ensured this module's place in D&D folklore. Oh no. Glancing inside the cover at the main region map, one's attention is drawn to the map key, which contains not 1, but 3 grammatical mistakes and spelling errors. There's an editor mentioned in the credits. I'm hoping she did the work for free. Perhaps she was drunk. Inside the module it gets no better. From the heavy-handed writing style, inclusion of irrelevant stats, omission of relevant stats, and seeming obliviousness to the most basic of AD&D rules, this module veers from one car crash to another. And that's ignoring the absurdity of many of the encounters and the utterly dreadful descriptions, the most famous of which I've already quoted, verbatim. And now I will paste into this video the DM's blurb for the Brigand encounter. There it is. So where to begin? What's the point of the percentage in lair stat for this encounter? They're on the bloody road. 1 to 6 hit dice? Yet they all have 10 hit points. 1 to 6 damage with a sword +1? Surely that should be 1 to 6 +1? No THACO listed? The UK modules, by this time, had this useful information in their encounter stats. There's no XP value for the enemies. Again, the UK modules had this listed. What armour are they wearing? Their AC 7. Is that studded leather, or is it leather and shield? And if so, why is their movement rate only 6? And then there's the bit about surprise. Absolute drivel. So the first main encounter in the adventure is crap. Surely it has to get better. Nope. We move on to Evan, the sleeping forester, and his desperate love, the nymph Chloe. Alas, she cannot wake him from his enchanted slumber because he has drunk the cursed water of the lake. Lake water that she cursed. So how do the party wake him? By shaking him, of course. Duh. Oh, and as their reward, Chloe gives them the antidote to the lake spell. She had it all along. But she was desperate, and she couldn't wake her lover. What? and there are more problems in the stats. Evan is listed as level 3, but he has 2 hit dice, and he does 2 to 7 damage with his axe. But he owns a longbow and a dagger. There's no axe listed. At least they didn't give you his percentage in lair stat, or make up more new surprise rules for this encounter. Next up, we visit the Wildwood Inn, run by a Bolo, or Bolo, the halfling. He's a roguish type, who is now going straight, according to the text. He's given up his life of crime. And yet, he is oblivious to a band of were-rats who frequent his inn. They make regular use of some secret doors that he appears to know nothing about, to rob the sleeping patrons. And despite that shady past, he cannot put 2 and 2 together to work out what is happening. And by the way, these were-rats seem to have an infinite supply of sleep spells, despite them not being spellcasters, or possessing any items which grant this ability. This inn is mentioned later on in the module, but with a different name. Was Bolo so embarrassed that he changed it, or did the editor not spot that clanger either? Maybe she was drunk again. We are currently only on page 7. There are 25 more to go, and thus the adventure bounces from one pointless, absurd location to another, with plentiful dollops of railroading, imbecilic opponents and ridiculous situations. The writing never improves. The encounter stats remain inconsistent. There's an insane dwarf with intelligence 14 and wisdom 15. He's a clever chap, but yet he's insane. At least the boxed text is consistent. That remains abysmal throughout. As I did say earlier, some of the artwork is okay. Look at these orcs. They look like proper orcs. Sadly, the actual orc encounters in the adventure are just as stupid as the ones I've already mentioned. To make matters worse about this adventure, it is one long, clumsy railroad. Should the party choose to deviate from the obvious tracks, there are some cleverly placed gypsies armed with charm spells to ensure they are brought back into line. The Forest Oracle is one mess of a module. My kids could write a better one, and they don't even play RPGs. It would take a great DM with skill and patience to polish this turd. I'm not that DM, thus I've never run it, and I never will. The N series would continue with N3, Destiny of Kings, and N4, Treasure Hunt, both of which were passable and genuine novice adventures. It would then end with N5, Under Ilefan, which I dislike, mainly because it is set in the Forgotten Realms, and I'm just a biased old grump.